she has zeal for our children, our future, and she is Mrs. Katie McFarland. Please give her a hand.
Hey everyone, I'm Katie McFarland. I actually chair the Oakland County chapter of Moms for Liberty. If you don't know anything about Moms for Liberty, basically it started back in 2020 by two moms out in Florida. They used to be school board members, and they saw policies in their schools that they did not like. They saw how basically the schools were basically violating a lot of parents and their rights in the home. And they decided to start a national organization. So Moms for Liberty, we are a nonprofit organization that we basically educate and empower parents to defend their parental rights and education, and just at all levels of government. We know that parents have the fundamental right to raise, they have the fundamental right to raise their children as they see fit. They know their children the most, and we need to protect our kids. What we are seeing in the public schools today, there's schools that are being, politicizing classrooms, which is taking away from academics. My two stepkids, they attend choice schools. Choice schools used to be top-notch with academics. Well, until they brought in diversity, equity, and inclusion politics, they hired a DEI coordinator. As soon as they did that, I saw the writing on the wall, and I looked at my husband. It was our first school board meeting I ever attended, and I said, this is bad, this is bad. They had the whole presentation on, segregating kids based on race and different, gender and this and that. And there's also a lot of gender ideology going on, which is abusive towards kids. So my stepson, Will, he's on the autism spectrum, and as you know, kids on the autism spectrum are some of the biggest targets for this gender ideology and this push, this trans ideology that we see going on with kids who feel, what kid is as an adolescent does not feel, any kind of anxiety at that time in their life. So second day of school, ninth grade, he came home and I saw he had, some surveys that were given to him, gender pronoun surveys given him in his Spanish and accounting classes. When we're like, well, we already filled out a survey at the beginning of the year. You know very well that he's a boy, so why are you asking his kids if they identify as they, them, and other? And so they're going behind parents' backs. So if you're not paying attention, this is what the schools are doing. So parents just be very leery and pay very close attention to what your kids are learning. Any kind of surveys, you can opt your child out. What I have partnered, the group I have partnered with, and a lot of the Moms for Liberty chapters across Michigan, we have another parental rights group called the Walled Lake Citizens for Parental Rights. So they are a very organized group. They actually partnered with the Thomas More Society Law Firm during the COVID lockdowns, and they had the mask mandates ended with the help of the Thomas More Society. So they were kind of like that pioneer school district that really helped the rest of the schools to really end the mask mandates in the school. So when I looked at that, I saw how organized this group was, and I decided to get in contact with them. And the lead of that group, Nathan Paul, he started this nonprofit called the Great Schools Initiative. The Great Schools Initiative is this statewide opt-out effort that we have going on in Michigan, where there is a MCL law in Michigan. It's called the Sex Ed Advisory Board Law. And basically we're finding out that many districts in Michigan and across the country, they are violating this law. The law basically states that sex ed needs to be confined to a class. It needs to be taught by a certified instructor. And you also have to have certain members, like a member of clergy on the board, which many districts are violating, such as choice schools. So we've done a lot of FOIA requests, and we've come to find out a lot of schools are violating this law. So Great Schools Initiative team, we created this opt-out form that includes not only being able to opt your child out of regular sex ed, But everything else that they're doing, which we call the rogue sex ed stuff, like the gender pronoun surveys, books in the classroom, we're finding age inappropriate and sometimes pornographic books in the school library. For example, Troy High has the book called Gender Queer. Now, I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with that book, but that group contains graphic images of oral sex. We tried to get that book removed from the high school library. The superintendent, and I have an email from him, came back with the rationale for why they decided to keep this book in the school library. And one of their pieces of rationale is that there are so very few resources that discuss topics of asexuality. So these are the things that they're prioritizing. They're focusing on sexuality topics over academics. Troy schools, like I said, which used to be very academically challenging, and people moved to Troy for the schools, they're on the decline. They also just recently removed middle school honors math, and they decided to remove 9th grade honors English. So we've been working a recall effort. Sadly, we were unable to get enough signatures in that time to recall board members, but we have 3 people that are up for re-election next year that we are trying to educate the community and tell them, vote these people out. Because bottom line is everything starts at the local level, so parents need to really get involved. The Great Schools Initiative opt-out effort too, if you want to participate in that, you go to greatschoolsinitiative.org, you can download the opt-out form, sign your name, and you can choose to opt your child out of both regular sex ed altogether, as well as all the other stuff that they're doing. And this list basically includes everything that these schools are violating. We have cases right now that are being that have elevated to the state level. We have parents that have tried to opt their child out, and the schools have flat out denied their opt-out form. So that's a violation right there, because they don't like this GSI form. They look at Great Schools Initiative and they look at this opt-out form and they know they're violating a lot of what's on this form. So they're trying to use the excuse that, no, we have our own forms in the school. But by law, it's per a parent's written request. And so we have support from our Thomas More law firm. They're helping us, helping many parents out with this opt-out effort and reporting violations. So it's an uphill battle that we face in Michigan right now. We have a lot of corruption. We have a lot of people that truly believe that the government owns our kids versus the parents. And that's why Moms for Liberty started, because we have to basically, who knew we'd ever have to assert our parental rights and education and fighting for kids' innocence, but this is what we have to do, and this is, they've given us no other choice. I tell parents all the time, the best thing you can do for your child is get them out of public school, and like I said, the classic education, like Hillsdale, I mean, in my mind, Hillsdale University is like the best college you can look at for your kid. A lot of these universities now, kids are going in and coming out, and their parents don't even recognize them anymore, as far as the things that are coming out of their mouth. And they're not heeding to the values that were taught in the home. But that's basically what I do. I just get involved. I door knock for local school board candidates, Moms for Liberty. We don't endorse like presidential candidates, but we can endorse school board candidates. So I was really active during the midterms. We had a couple of people in our neighborhood that were running for school board, and sadly they lost. It was just a tough battle, but they still, it was still a worthwhile effort to try to get them on the board and help make policy better in Troy schools. But even good districts like Troy, they're on a decline right now too. And what we're seeing with academic proficiency, I know there's an article I read, and right now only 5% of kids in Detroit public schools are reading at a proficient level. It's abysmal. This is tragic. And then there's lawmakers that are, passing laws that are hurting kids even further academically, like the repeal of the 3rd grade, the reading. Kids are getting passed along onto the 4th grade when they're not even proficient with basic reading skills. So, rather than hold them back a year to really gain that skill skill set that they need to grow. They're just being passed along. So this was just recently, I think, signed off by Gretchen Whitmer. Yep. So it's a mess. It's a mess, and we just have to get better. So I just say parents get involved, attend school board meetings. They're not fun. They're nauseating. I was just at a school board meeting a couple nights ago, and when you got board members up there and all they're doing is just rubber stamping the superintendent, a corrupt superintendent, and just kissing each other's butt, and there's no dissenting opinion, and it's nauseating to watch, but you see what they're doing, and they're focusing more on feelings than they are on academics. Going back to what you said, kids need the basics, right? Right now they're doing all this social emotional learning. Troy Schools talks about deep learning, and it's a lot of collaboration in the classroom. Well, the kids need to get that foundation first before they can really, get the deep learning. And so they're really focused on that versus these kids, being proficient. And we've even seen the proficiency go down in Troy Schools. Athens High School last year, they were at like a 46% less than proficient in math. So I mean that is just abysmal. So we just have to get better. So, but does anybody have any questions about the Moms for Liberty or anything that's going on in the public schools right now that you want to talk about?
What's the situation on the state?
I'm not sure. Oh, that's the speaker.
Is this promoting all the bad stuff?
Oh, yeah. The State Board of Education, we have two conservative board members, Nikki Snyder, who is running for U.S. Senate. Vote Nikki Snyder, she's fantastic. And Tom McMillan. Tom McMillan and Nikki Snyder are the two warriors on the State Board of Education. The rest of them are garbage. They're corrupt. And I have personally gone out to Lansing and I have shown books and read passages of some of the pornography that we have found in school libraries, and they stonewall us. They don't care. They don't care. And they continue to pass more and more policies, resolutions, which really don't mean much, but it's basically harming our kids. And a lot of times, local school districts, they'll use whatever flows down from the state board as an excuse to why they're passing some bad policy in the school as well. So, our State Board of Education, they're corrupt. We have two good people on there, and they're fighters. But every time they try to do something good, they get shut down. So it's a disaster.
And then, what sort of coverage from the press have you got in your actions?
Oh, Moms for Liberty?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm sure some of you saw the Southern Poverty Law Center, the far left group. They declared Moms for Liberty a hate group. So basically, groups like far left groups like that, they're going to demonize and attack anybody that they don't agree with, and anybody that holds conservative values. So who's there to target? Moms, dads, grandparents, concerned citizens that are just fighting for kids' innocence, who knew we'd be demonized for that, right? So they'll use every word in the book. They called us Nazis and racists and homophobes, and until these titles mean nothing anymore, and they just do it to gaslight people into believing this. And some people do, sadly. They won't believe anything they hear. But I will say that SPLC, I like to thank them, because ever since they came out with that article attacking Moms for Liberty, our membership grew. We're up to over 120,000 members nationwide now. So thank you, SPLC, for common sense people will see right through that nonsense. So. Yeah. That's about it.
Really scary to know that that type of thing is happening in our schools. That's extremely scary. And all we can do at this point is pray. The kingdom of darkness should not be more united than we are. That's all I can say about that. Our next